Alright, Geordie Prepper here, and welcome to Wednesday Weekly World News Extra. We're going to be talking a bit more in depth about coronavirus on this episode, but first of all, just starting off with local weather in Britain. We've got most of England and southern Scotland with a amber alert, so we could see really bad weather. We could also see a further hampering because there's still some cleanup from the previous one happening. Obviously, you know, there is risks at a local level, but we are looking at mostly COVID-19 in this episode, so let's move along with that. If we're looking at the cases, it's just over 45,000 at the minute, just over 1,100 deaths. And, you know, it's easy if you look at this map. You know, we've got big red circles. It looks kind of like pandemic movie, any sort of movie like with a contagion or something. And yes, it is definitely something to still be concerned about. We've got this graph is still going up. If anything, it's accelerating, although luckily it doesn't seem to be accelerating as bad as what it might be. And obviously, you know, if you look at this, it looks quite bad, but we've got to remember here that if we switch to this map, these are the deaths from COVID-19, and if we look at this, it is in a very contained area. Even though it's a very large area, obviously, it is only one particular portion of the world where there's actually deaths confirmed from COVID-19. Again, you know, this isn't the stage to panic at. It's just to obviously be concerned about it, but to put that concern into a positive thing such as prepping. We can see here, although the deaths have been limited to a particular corner of the world, there's an article here which is basically saying that the coronavirus outbreak is just beginning outside of China. And this is a WHO body saying this. I think we are just seeing the beginning of COVID-19. It has the potential to get very bad very quickly. The growth of the deaths outside of China is thankfully really, really limited right now. But there is still some very, very worrying signs and information coming out of China's doctors that are saying, you know, that as they analyze the virus, they're discovering more things about it. Like they're saying that it's easily aerosolized. So aerosolized is a very, very concerning turn of events with this virus, because it means that the distance being infected is increased a lot. And there's also Singapore's reported 50 coronavirus out cases, one of the highest tallies outside of China. So this particularly could be a hotspot. There's including mounting evidence of local transmission. This is basically pointing towards the aerosolization, which unfortunately means that the preferred method of the public right now is to go out and buy these surgical masks, you know, that sort of mask. You know, those aren't going to protect them. You know, it needs to be a respirator with a pressurized seal that will actually protect you, as well as eye protection and ear protection. But having said that, if the virus truly is very, very easily aerosolized, then even these precautions may not be 100% effective, because an aerosolized droplets could land on an exposed area of skin. You know, you touch that area of skin and then you have got the virus. So this really brings into the advice of washing your hands properly, not touching your face, and you know, that really can help with reducing not only the risk of you getting it, but passing it on. Next article we're looking at is from China Post, and there's a health minister is questioning the claim of coronavirus 24-day incubation. So this was something else that we saw. The incubation period was said to have been at least 10 days longer than what was initially thought, which was 14 days. And on all mainstream media, they're pretty much saying that the incubation period is only 14 days, but it came out of China that the incubation period is anything from 0 to 24 days. They're saying that the study, which hasn't been peer reviewed, and this is kind of hypocritical in a way, because these bodies, which the public is supposed to trust, they're saying, oh, you know, we've got to review it. It doesn't get the seal of approval unless we look at it. And all of their actions, which come out of these agencies, have been absolutely disgraceful up until this point. They show no indication that they're willing to contain this virus, and there still isn't any indication that they're wanting to do this. They haven't advised the world in a responsible manner about how to contain this virus. If somebody in China in a study is saying that the incubation period is longer, they should take that information seriously until it's conclusively analysed, that information, and replicated themselves that this is the case. Because with such a long incubation period, if they're given advice that it's only 14 days, there's people that are going to be self-quarantining, whether that's workers and medical staff or whoever. They're going to be self-quarantined for 14 days. They're just going to instantly assume on the 15th day, that they're free and clear. And if this period is extended by even a day or two, then that's a really serious risk, and it just further increases the transmission rate. So yeah, I mean, it's exposing a lot of weaknesses in the systems, COVID-19. We need to look at many sources and just make our own informed decisions on how to protect ourselves. Next article we're looking at, China vows to house all coronavirus patients. The big thing that they're saying here, though, is that treatment isn't guaranteed. I think this speaks to a large degree on the scale of this outbreak. We've seen these hospitals, well, the people are calling them hospitals, but they're not actually hospitals, they're just quarantine centres, which is why they have locks and bars on the windows. They simply don't want anybody just walking out of that facility and making the situation worse. These buildings, which they erected in like a week or two, they're not hospitals, there's no treatment going to be given there. I think I've seen a video where there was a Chinese worker outside the facility. He's basically saying that if anybody is inside and they're taking medication, they're not going to provide anything for them. So they're not going to provide any of the medication. I think they're allowed a family member to bring medication to the quarantine site, and then they'll distribute it to the patient. But they're not going to offer any sort of medical or support which a hospital would give, because they're not hospitals. It's been made very clear, yet the world has been saying, oh, they've built a hospital in 2 weeks, and they haven't built a hospital, they've built a quarantine center. Again, this is something you've got to be aware of. If you've got this virus, whether any sort of authority likes it or not, people are not going to want to go into these facilities, especially with the aerosolization coming out. There's a worrying area of concern for transmission in prisons. A British man who was extradited from Thailand under suspicion of dealing drugs has collapsed in a British prison. He was under suspicion, so he may not actually be a drug dealer, but have extradited him from an area which has the COVID-19. He was put in a British prison, and then it's feared that he's contracted the virus. The alleged drug dealer and his cellmate. So, I mean, this again exposes a weakness in the system. The alleged drug dealer and his cellmate. So he came from an area which was known, and he was put in a cell with another cellmate, instantly jeopardizing that of a cellmate. They were taken to a hospital, and HMP Bullingdon went into panic. Again, just not prepared for this sort of thing in a prison. Hundreds of prisoners have been confined to the cells, and an entire wing of the prison has been cordoned off. The ease of this transmission of this virus seems to be evident. Obviously, this entire wing and the entire prison is going to be at risk, which means the workers are at risk, which means the workers' families, their friends, children, all at risk because they housed this alleged drug dealer in a cell where there's no quarantine. Also, what we're seeing is the language of this viral outbreak. We're seeing at the beginning, they were basically saying, oh, it's nothing to worry about, etc. And then Britain is saying it's a serious and imminent threat, and they're activating emergency powers. You don't do this for something which isn't serious. This seems to be a preemptive move. They're realizing that if they have an outbreak on the scale of China, which could still happen, they need the ability, or what they claim is the authority, to, even if people are just suspected of having the coronavirus, they can forcefully quarantine you, or at least they'll attempt to. You know, this is, we've had from the very beginning, from many institutions, including governments, mixed messages about this thing. So basically, what I'm saying and what I've been saying to people is just take the basic precautions. There's plenty of good information out there, and preppers especially have been putting it out for weeks now. Just really good, basic, simple advice. Been no fear mongering from the prepper community. You know, we've been saying as preppers for years, it's just sensible precautions to take basic prepping steps for any situation, and this includes pandemic. That's the wrap up for this episode of Wednesday Weekly World News, guys. Just be safe and prepared, and I'll link down below. There's information to the articles, and there's information to the maps here which track the COVID-19. There's also some links to some videos which I've done, and links to videos which other preppers have done, which I recommend you watching. And also there's some links to some items which I believe can really help in a situation like this. So be safe and prepared, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Ari, Geordie Prepper here. I hope you liked the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to comment and subscribe and share the video too if you did. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down, and some constructive feedback is always welcomed. The Preppers Discord server is always available to talk to myself and other preppers about prepping and other relevant topics. My other social media is on screen now. You can follow me there, and I usually just use it to post when new videos are available. Don't forget to be safe and be prepared, and also check your preps.